In the fall of 1944, a cotton county in the American South reached the week that decided whether the year paid its bills. The bowls were open and the rain season was close. The men who usually brought the crop in were overseas, and the fields could not wait. The county agriculture agent, the man who kept the harvest schedule and who wanted labor before the crop spoiled, faced a knot of farmers in a courthouse office. One farmer dumped damp cotton on the desk. Another pointed at a notebook of debts. The farmers did not ask for comfort. The farmers asked for hands. The county agriculture agent called the nearest prisoner of war camp. The county agriculture agent reached the liaison officer, the officer who controlled access to the camp and who wanted the county quiet. The liaison officer asked for numbers, not anger. The county agriculture agent said the county needed 30 workers within days or the crop would fall apart. The liaison officer set a meeting at the camp at first light and told the county agriculture agent to bring the clerk. Before dawn, Frank McClain, the labor officer at the prisoner of war camp, sat with a map and a stack of War Department circulars. McClain controlled the one signature that could let prisoners pass the wire for contract labor. McClain wanted cotton in the gin and every prisoner back behind the fence by nightfall. McClain also wanted no escapes and no headlines. The camp commander, the man who controlled approvals and who wanted no surprises, put the terms on the desk. The commander said the county could have labor only if McClain could prove control and keep to the Geneva Convention standards. The commander said one escape would be McClain's failure. McClain said the county would get a plan, not a gamble. After the commander left, McClain opened the circulars again and read the lines that made this county feel small. More than 500 prisoner of war camps operated inside the United States, holding more than 400,000 prisoners, mostly German. The system existed to cover labor gaps, but it survived only when every camp proved the same thing each day. The prisoners worked, the prisoners returned, and nobody in town could point to a broken chain. In the conference room, McClain sat with the recorder, the person who kept rosters and who wanted every count to match, and two guards, the men who carried rifles and who wanted the day to end without a report. The county agriculture agent arrived with the clerk, the person who controlled county money and who wanted the cheapest answer. The county agriculture agent spoke first. The county agriculture agent said the cotton was turning and the gin would reject wet pickings. The county agriculture agent said the county did not have time for paperwork. McClain slid the contract forms across the table. McClain said the county had time for paperwork, or the county had time for a search party in the woods. McClain said prisoners would not leave the camp until there was a signed contract, fixed routes, a guard plan, a tool list, daily counts, and an emergency drill for a missing man. The clerk started to argue about cost. The liaison officer cut in and told the clerk to argue with the bank, not with the army. The county agriculture agent wanted one large crew that could be moved across the county. McClain said no. McClain said there would be 3 groups of 10, each with a fixed truck, fixed guards, and a fixed recorder. McClain said each group would work only in open fields under line of sight. McClain said each group would take one route that avoided the town center and avoided rail lines. The clerk said the county would pay by the amount picked. McClain said the county was buying guarded labor by the day. McClain set the rate per prisoner workday and the fuel cost, and McClain set the rule that the county would replace lost tools. The county agriculture agent told the clerk to write. The recorder wrote the operating rules beside the payment terms because money without rules would collapse. McClain set the tightest rule last. Prisoners would not speak with civilians except through guards. The county agriculture agent objected and said farm work required shouting across rows. McClain said guards would shout. McClain said prisoners would work, eat, and ride in silence if that was what kept the county from panic. The county agriculture agent signed because the cotton did not wait. The county agriculture agent asked for machine operators because tractors were breaking down. McClain said no. McClain said repair work required privacy and tools that could be turned into weapons. McClain said the county would use older men for machines and use prisoners for picking, carrying, and loading. The camp commander entered after the ink dried, approved the first day, and ordered a written report by nightfall. McClain walked to the compound with the guards and the recorder. Men in worn uniforms watched from bunks and fence lines. Hans Wegner, A German prisoner who carried the mood of the detachment and who wanted to pry open the rules stood near the fence and tracked McClain with calm eyes. McClain marked Wegner and did not look away. McClain ordered a line and had the recorder read names. McClain picked 30 men who looked strong enough to lift sacks and steady enough to take shouted commands. McClain pointed at Wegner and told Wegner to step forward. Wegner asked where the men were going. McClain said cotton fields under guard, out and back in one day. Wegner asked whether the men would get water in the field. McClain said yes, under guard supervision. Wegner asked whether the men would be treated as workers. McClain said the men would be treated as a detachment under orders, and the orders would be enforced. McClain addressed the detachment in short sentences through the interpreter, the person who controlled understanding and who wanted no later excuses. McClain said the men would stay in groups, stay in line of sight and touch nothing but cotton. McClain said any man who left the group would be chased and would not leave the camp again. The guards listened because the guards would have to enforce it on a road with civilians watching. In the supply room, the recorder built 3 tool crates and counted every item. The recorder wrote every count on a sheet that would be checked at dusk. The clerk watched the counts because the clerk did not want a bill for lost tools. McClain watched the schedule because the first day would show where the weak places were. That evening, the analyst, the person who tracked public pressure and who wanted no scandal, handed McClain a clipping about Papago Park in Arizona, sending about 200 German prisoners to pick cotton in September of 1944. The analyst said other counties were already doing this work. The analyst also said one escape or one shooting could end it everywhere. McClain told the guards to hold fire unless a life was at risk and to rely on voices, numbers, and the road. McClain spent the rest of the day turning the contract into a drill. McClain walked the route with a guard and marked every place a truck could turn around. McClain set the stopping points and banned unscheduled stops. McClain told the recorder to count at the gate, count at the field, count at the truck, and count again before dusk. McClain told the guards that a quick count was better than a loud threat, because a loud threat attracted civilians and a quick count ended trouble. The county agriculture agent drove back into town with the contract tucked under county forms. At a feed store counter, a man asked if enemy soldiers were coming to work American fields. The county agriculture agent said the county was doing what was needed to keep the harvest from dying. The man said the county should let the crop rot before letting the enemy touch it. The county agriculture agent left without arguing because arguing did not pick cotton. Before sunrise, the guards formed a lane to the truck yard. The recorder stood by the gate with a roster and a pencil. McClain stood beside the recorder and watched every face. The 30 men came out in 3 groups. Wegner was in the first group and kept eyes on hinges, chains, and locks. The recorder called names and the men answered. The guards issued sacks and gloves and watched pockets. One prisoner tried to keep a pencil stub. A guard took it and dropped it into a box. Wegner watched and learned what the guards noticed. When the first crate was lifted toward the lead truck, Wegner stepped half a pace out of line. A guard snapped a command and pointed back. Wegner held the pause for 1 beat, then stepped back. McClain walked close and spoke low. McClain told Wegner that the line was the deal, and the deal was McClain's authority. McClain told Wegner that the first man who broke the line would not leave the camp again. Wegner gave no answer, but Wegner stopped moving. The engine started. The recorder climbed into the lead truck. The guards took positions. McClain climbed in last and looked back at the wire. The gate opened, 3 trucks rolled out, and the gate closed behind them. At a crossroads outside town, the county agriculture agent waited with 2 local deputies, the men who wanted the county calm and wanted no fights in the ditch. A few townspeople stood near the road with arms crossed and faces tight. Dust rose, and the convoy came into view. Wegner sat in the truck bed with hands on knees and eyes on the road ahead. The guards watched Wegner. McClain watched the guards. The county needed cotton moving. The camp needed control holding. The day had started, and the open gate was behind them. The trucks reached the first farm before the sun climbed high. It was the first day outside the wire in the fall of 1944. Frank McClain, the labor officer who controlled outside work and who wanted every prisoner back behind the wire before dark, had the lead driver stop short of the field gate. McClain did not let a wheel pass the gate until the recorder, the person who controlled the roster and who wanted every count to match, called the first roll. 30 names came out of the pencil, 30 answers came back. Hans Wegner, the German prisoner who carried the mood of the detachment and who wanted to pry open the rules, answered with the same flat tone as the others. Wegner stepped down from the truck bed only after the guard, the man who controlled the rifle and who wanted no running today, pointed to the dirt and ordered the first group into the lane. McClain used the lane the way McClain used the contract. The lane was narrow, visible, and hard to argue with. The guard stood at the edges, the recorder stood at the end with the sheet. The clerk, the person who controlled county money and who wanted proof for every payment, stood beside the recorder and watched the pencil. A small crowd waited near the road. The county agriculture agent, the man who wanted the harvest saved, and who now also wanted the county calm, kept the crowd behind a fence line. The liaison officer stayed near the county agriculture agent and watched faces. Some faces held anger, some faces held relief. A farmer shouted that cotton did not pick itself. Another man shouted that the enemy should not touch American soil. The county agriculture agent did not answer. The county agriculture agent pointed toward the rows and told the farmers to keep vehicles out of the lane. Work began in the open rows where a guard could see hands and feet. The prisoners pulled cotton into sacks and carried sacks to the loading point. The guards walked the edges and watched for hands leaving the row. The recorder marked every water stop and every shift of position. McClain watched the distance to the road and watched the crowd. Wegner worked, but Wegner also tested the limits without leaving the row. Wegner slowed the pace when a guard stepped away, then sped up when the guard returned, as if Wegner were measuring how closely the guard watched. Wegner also kept the eyes moving, from the lane to the tree line and back. McClain noticed and kept Wegner in the first group where McClain could reach Wegner fast. Late in the morning, a rumor almost started the first fire. A prisoner shook a glove, and a metal farm pin dropped into the dirt. The pin flashed once in the sun. A woman by the fence yelled that a prisoner had dropped a blade. 2 men took one step forward, and the step pulled another step behind it. McClain moved first. McClain crouched in the row, picked up the pin, and held the pin up at arm level. McClain walked the pin to the clerk and placed the pin on the clerk's open palm. The clerk looked at the pin and nodded because the clerk recognized a cheap farm fastener. McClain then turned to the county agriculture agent and pointed to the crowd. The county agriculture agent pushed the crowd back 10 yards and used the liaison officer as a voice, not as a fist. The moment ended, but McClain kept the lane tighter after that. At noon, the prisoners ate near the trucks under guard eyes. McClain did not let civilians hand food or water to prisoners. The county agriculture agent complained about the lost minutes. McClain answered with a count. McClain said lost minutes were cheaper than a missing man. The county agriculture agent stopped arguing because the crop did not care about pride. During the meal, Wegner tried the first contact anyway. Wegner turned toward a farmer at the fence and asked, in one clean English sentence, how long the harvest would last. The farmer did not answer, but the farmer also did not back away. The farmer's stillness was enough for Wegner to try again. A guard stepped between Wegner and the fence and raised a palm. McClain came in behind the guard and spoke through the interpreter, the person who controlled understanding and who wanted no later excuses. McClain told Wegner that the deal was work, not talk. McClain told Wegner that the next attempt would move Wegner to the 3rd truck and away from the gate line. Wegner looked at the guard, then at McClain, then lowered the eyes and faced forward. The afternoon ran faster. The county agriculture agent brought a reading from the cotton gin that showed the first load was dry enough to accept. The county agriculture agent waved the slip at McClain like a flag. McClain did not celebrate. McClain told the recorder to mark the reading and told the guards to keep the lane tight. At dusk, the recorder called the count at the field, called the count at the trucks, and called the count again at the road edge. 30 answers came back each time. McClain rode in the lead cab on the return and watched the crowd fade behind the dust. Back at the camp gate, the recorder called the final roll and matched every line. The camp commander, the man who controlled approvals and who wanted no surprises, took McClain's written report without comment. The camp commander approved the next day and added one line. The camp commander said the county would not get a second chance if the county created a scene. The second day brought fewer spectators and louder talk. A man at the road called the guards traitors for babysitting Germans. Another man told that man to shut up and said the man should go pick cotton instead. The county agriculture agent heard both and kept moving. The county agriculture agent needed the work to stay boring. The fourth day was not boring. The analyst, the person who tracked public pressure and who wanted no scandal, brought a local paper to McClain. The headline said, "Enemy labor was taking American work." The analyst said the paper would force a meeting, and the meeting would decide whether the county kept the program. The county agriculture agent called the meeting at the town hall that night. The county agriculture agent stood at a table with the clerk and the liaison officer. The analyst sat behind them with a sheet of numbers. McClain stood off to the side with two guards because McClain was not there to debate. McClain was there to keep the project alive without breaking the rules. The first speaker shouted that the county was feeding the enemy while families rationed food. The county agriculture agent answered with a simple fact. The county agriculture agent said the prisoners ate army rations under army supervision and did not eat at county tables. A second speaker shouted that prisoners would escape and harm women. The county agriculture agent said the prisoners traveled under armed guard on fixed route in fixed groups with counts at every stop. A third speaker shouted that the county was shaming the boys overseas by letting Germans work American soil. The county agriculture agent said the county was saving the harvest so those boys had a home worth returning to. The shouting did not stop, so McClain stepped forward. McClain used the same tone McClain used at the camp gate. McClain said the army owned the prisoners and the army set the rules. McClain said the county paid the army for guarded labor, not the prisoners. McClain said any prisoner who tried to run would be hunted and removed from outside work. McClain said any civilian who tried to help a prisoner would face federal charges. The words were blunt, and the crowd reacted as if McClain had threatened the whole town. A man asked why the county needed enemy hands at all. The analyst stood and read the numbers like a ledger. The analyst said official research from the War Department later summarized that between 1943 and 1945, contract prisoner labor produced about 34,219,000 prisoner workdays, and agriculture accounted for about 20,883,000 prisoner workdays. The analyst said those numbers existed because millions of American workers were in uniform, and fields still had to be cut on time. The analyst said this county was not special. This county was late to a program the war had already forced on the country. The room stayed tense, but the meeting ended without a vote to stop the work. Outside, two men at the door called the county agriculture agent a friend of the enemy. The county agriculture agent did not answer. The county agriculture agent had chosen to stand in public and accept the label because the crop would not forgive cowardice. McClain returned to camp with the guards and felt the pressure shift. The guards were no longer only watching prisoners, the guards were also being watched by the town. One guard said the town hated the guards. McClain told the guard that hatred was cheaper than a gunshot, and the guard should accept hatred as part of the job. The guard did not like the answer, but the guard did not argue again. By the sixth day, fatigue began to show. A guard forgot to call a count before shifting the work line. The recorder caught the miss and called the count anyway, loud enough for civilians to hear. A man by the fence laughed and said the army could not count its own enemy. McClain heard the laugh and felt the program turn brittle. That night, McClain changed the drill. McClain ordered shorter guard shifts. McClain ordered the recorder to call counts on a fixed clock, not on a guard signal. McClain ordered the tool crates checked at the field and checked again at the camp gate. The recorder wrote the new rule on the sheet and taped the sheet inside each truck cab so no one could claim ignorance. Wegner watched the fatigue with interest. Wegner stopped trying to talk to civilians. Wegner started watching the tool crates and the pencil marks. Wegner knew a missing tool would bring a search, and a search would bring confusion, and confusion could open a gap. On the 9th day, the recorder opened the tool crate at dusk and paused. The last hook was not in its slot. The recorder checked the ground, checked the sacks, and checked the truck bed. The clerk watched the search and went pale because the clerk imagined the newspaper headline. A guard stepped closer with a hand tight on the rifle. McClain saw the pause and moved straight to Wegner. Wegner met McClain's eyes without surprise. The field had gone quiet. The crowd at the road had gone quiet. The program balanced on one small missing piece, and McClain could feel the county holding its breath. At dusk on the 9th day, the recorder opened the tool crate and stopped. One field hook was missing from its slot. Frank McClain, the labor officer who controlled outside work and who wanted every prisoner back behind the wire with no scandal, stepped to the crate and checked the inventory sheet. McClain looked at the empty slot, then looked at the field, then looked at the road. Hans Wegner, the German prisoner who carried the mood of the detachment and who wanted to pry open the rules, stood near the cotton sacks with hands at rest. Wegner watched McClain without blinking. The guard, the man who carried the rifle and who wanted the day to end clean, shifted the stance and tightened the grip. The clerk, the person who controlled county money and who wanted proof for every payment, stared at the crate and waited for the next mistake. McClain raised one hand. McClain froze the work line before panic could move. McClain told the interpreter, the person who controlled understanding and who wanted no later excuses, to repeat the order in German. The interpreter spoke. The prisoners stopped where the prisoners stood. McClain turned to the county agriculture agent, the man who wanted the harvest saved, and who now also carried the town's anger, and pointed toward the road. McClain told the county agriculture agent to push civilians back. The county agriculture agent waved to the deputies, the men who wanted the county calm and wanted no fights in the ditch. The deputies moved along the fence line and forced space between the lane and the crowd. A man at the fence shouted that the enemy had stolen a weapon. The chant started quick because the town wanted a simple story. McClain gave the town no show. McClain told the recorder, the person who controlled the roster and who wanted every count to match, to call roll now. The recorder read names with a steady voice. 30 answers came back. No one was missing. McClain told the guards to face the crowd and block sight lines with bodies, not rifles. The guards stepped out. The guards held rifles low. McClain then told the recorder to open every sack mouth and shake every sack in place. Wegner kept eyes on the guards and on the crate latch. Wegner did not move the feet. Wegner let other men shift and sweat while Wegner stayed calm. A small glint dropped from a cuff into the dirt near the end of the third group. The guard saw the glint and stepped on it. The guard looked at McClain and waited. McClain walked over and crouched. McClain brushed away dust and pulled out the missing hook. McClain stood and held the hook up at shoulder height so the road could see it. McClain carried the hook across the lane and placed the hook into the clerk's open hand. The clerk nodded once. McClain spoke through the interpreter. McClain told the prisoners that outside work depended on clean counts and complete tools. McClain told the prisoners that the next missing tool would end outside work for the whole detachment. The interpreter repeated the words. Wegner listened and gave no reaction. McClain ended the day early. McClain loaded the sacks, sealed the crate latch with wire, and ordered the convoy out before the crowd could build a new chant. At the camp gate, the recorder called roll again. 30 answers came back. The camp commander, the man who controlled approvals and who wanted no surprises, read McClain's report at the gatehouse and ordered tighter control starting tomorrow. McClain reduced each work group, added a guard to each truck, and added 2 extra roll calls inside the field. McClain moved every water stop into the truck lane. McClain told the recorder that counts would happen on the clock. McClain told the guards to keep rifles down unless a life was in immediate danger. The county agriculture agent tried to fight the new rules before sunrise. McClain said the program would die the first time a rifle fired in front of civilians. McClain said the county could accept slower work or accept rotten cotton. The county agriculture agent accepted slower work and drove back to the trucks. McClain shifted Wegner away from the lead truck and put Wegner in a middle group. McClain did not explain it. Wegner noticed anyway. 2 days later, the low point arrived with a lie shouted from the road. The convoy reached a loading point near a ditch line. The lane was narrow and the rope line was up. Deputies stood near the road. The crowd was smaller than before, but the faces were harder. The recorder called a count before the first sack moved. Every answer came back. Work started in the open rows, and the guards walked the edges. Mid-morning, a woman near the road pointed at the ditch and screamed that a prisoner had slipped out. The scream lit the crowd. Men surged toward the rope line. The rope line bowed. At the same time, one prisoner at the end of the third group dropped a sack and stepped toward the ditch in response to the scream. 2 other prisoners shifted to follow. Hans Wegner did not run, but Wegner watched the edge and watched the crowd press forward. Wegner watched the guards and waited for the wrong choice. One guard lifted the rifle 2 inches. The guard's finger tightened. The guard looked from the moving prisoner to the crowd. Frank McClain cut across the lane and put a hand on the rifle barrel. McClain pushed the barrel down. McClain gave orders. McClain told the interpreter to shout one word for stop. The interpreter shouted. The prisoners froze for a beat. McClain told the recorder to call roll now, loud and fast. The recorder started reading names at a run. McClain told one guard to drive the lead truck forward 3 yards and seal the lane. The truck rolled and blocked the gap between the lane and the ditch. McClain told another guard to step forward with a palm raised. Deputies moved in behind that guard and pushed the crowd back without swinging fists. The moving prisoner tried to step again. McClain ran to the prisoner and grabbed the sleeve. McClain turned the prisoner back toward the group and pushed the prisoner into the center of the line. McClain ordered 2 guards to hold the prisoner by the arms, hands on cloth, not hands on triggers. Wegner took 1 step forward to speak. McClain snapped Wegner's name and pointed to the row. Wegner stopped. The recorder reached the last name and heard the last answer. Every prisoner was present. The scream from the road had been a lie, and the lie had failed because the count matched. McClain ordered every prisoner to sit in the lane with hands on knees and eyes down. The interpreter repeated the order. The prisoners sat. McClain ordered the guards into a loose circle facing outward, rifles low, eyes on the crowd. The guards formed the circle and held the wall. The county agriculture agent ran into the lane and demanded answers. McClain told the county agriculture agent that a false shout had almost caused a shooting. McClain told the county agriculture agent to clear the road now or lose the program today. The county agriculture agent drove the deputies forward, and the deputies forced the crowd back down the ditch line. McClain restarted work in slow steps. McClain ordered pairs, not single men, in each row. McClain ordered a count every 30 minutes until the convoy left. McClain ordered the convoy to leave in daylight, even if sacks remained. The county agriculture agent watched sacks left on the ground and swallowed the anger. The county agriculture agent understood the trade in that moment. That night, McClain reported the near disaster to the camp commander. The camp commander asked why McClain had touched the rifle. McClain said the crowd was a weapon too. McClain said one shot would turn guarded labor into a national problem and force camps to pull back. McClain said the program survived only if the rifle stayed down. The camp commander ordered McClain to write it into the file and not hide it. After the low point, the work became quieter and harder. The next morning, McClain met the county agriculture agent at the field gate before the prisoners stepped down from the trucks. McClain showed the county agriculture agent the new daily order and the written record of the near shooting. McClain told the county agriculture agent that the deputies would stay close to the lane all day and the rope line would be watched, or McClain would end outside work that day. The county agriculture agent protested and said the county could not police every angry man. McClain answered with the same sentence McClain used on the 9th day. McClain said the county could accept the rules or accept rotten cotton. The county agriculture agent turned and ordered the deputies to set the rope line wider and to walk it all day because walking was cheaper than losing the labor. The first hour proved McClain right. A man who had been shouting all week stepped over the rope line to get closer. The deputy grabbed the man's arm and shoved the man back. The man swung the elbow. The deputy twisted the wrist and pinned the man against a fence post. The crowd saw the pin and backed off. The prisoners saw the pin and stopped watching the crowd. The clerk arrived at noon and tried again to cut cost. The clerk pointed at the added deputies and said the county was paying twice for the same control. McClain pointed at the truck lane and said control was cheaper than disaster. McClain told the clerk that one gunshot would end contract labor here and would still leave the county paying its debts. The clerk did not like the numbers, but the clerk signed the amendment because the crop was still in the field. McClain moved fields farther from roads. McClain reduced stops to 2, the camp gate and the field. McClain kept Wegner separated and kept Wegner under direct guard eye. Hans Wegner answered with cold effort. Wegner did not run. Wegner did not talk. Wegner watched fatigue and waited for someone else to break first. Rain came, and the county lost the low fields. The county saved the high fields and hauled enough bales to keep debts from crushing the farmers. On the last workday, the convoy made the final run. The guards looked older. The recorder's pencil was worn to a stub. McClain's voice was rough from commands. Wegner's eyes were steady and flat. At dusk, the recorder called the final roll at the camp gate. 30 answers came back. The tool crates matched. The trucks emptied. The gate closed. In the county office the next morning, the clerk wrote the last payment and stamped the paper. The county agriculture agent signed the receipt with eyes down because the town would never clap for this work. McClain signed the army form and carried the papers back to the camp. The camp commander read the closing report in silence and gave McClain one cold line that defined the whole deal. The camp commander said, "No incident is success." McClain walked past the wire as the prisoners returned to barracks. Wegner stood behind the fence and watched the trucks drive away. The county agriculture agent drove back to the fields and watched water pool in the low rows. The harvest went in where the county could reach it. The wire stayed locked. The work that saved the crop was done by enemy hands under American rules, and the county moved on without wanting to remember it.